The 2024 AGM minutes were emailed to members September 29 with the annual reports. So I'm asking for a motion and a seconder to approve the acceptance of minutes of the 2024 AGM as previously circulated in the September newsletter. I will so move. David has moved. Second was Dave? Dave Elliott. All in favor of that? Just raise your hands. It's carried. Our treasurer, Norm Fisher, sitting at the back, prepared the financial statements and the financial position as at the year ended 24-25. They were included in the September 29th email. Bill Greenaway confirmed that he has reviewed and approved the financial statements. Norm, are there any corrections to the financial statement, or can we vote on them now? No corrections? Thank you. I'm asking for a motion and a seconder to approve the acceptance of the 24-25 financial report. Dave Nodwell? Linda Denning. All in favor? And it's carried. The reports of the program activities in membership committees have been previously circulated for the information of members in the recent newsletter, and they do not require a motion to approve. Anne Boudreau, as chair of the nominating committee, presents the 2025-2026 nominating committee report. Anne, right here. Are you going to come up and we'll probably need to make this live, Jerry. Great.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here. And I just would like to mention, because Jim does not eat sugar, but there's a cake back there that we would like to share with you, and it's the anniversary cake of PROBUS. So please have a piece and enjoy it, or take a piece home. It's delicious, trust me, it's really good. Okay, I'm just going to ask, Jim, could you get rid of that for me, dear? Oh, I've got it, okay.
Magic.
The officers and committee chairs nominated for the next term are as follows, and each officer will come in to the front to be recognized as their name is called, please. Okay? First person is President Linda Davenport. Vice President is David Nodwell. Past President is Jim Thompson. Secretary, hi there. Secretary is Ruth Slavin. Ruth is gone to a funeral for her brother-in-law who was a PROBUS member here, John Tice. I think you all know him. The treasurer is Norm Fisher. The membership chair is Ellen Bell. The program chair is Kathy Stevens. Kathy is in Barrie visiting her sister who is very ill and would like Kathy to be with her. So there she is, and we're sending both of them our best wishes. House committee is Wilma Churchill. I think, there she is. Activities chairman is Barbara Moldenhauer. She's not here today? She's in Ottawa. Okay, thank you. And IT and webmaster is David Churchill. The newsletter editor is Linda Yates. Would you like to? Sure. This next thing is yours?
Yep, I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay. The PROBUS bylaws require me to make 3 calls for further nominations from the floor. I'm making call number 1. I see none. Call number 2. I see none. And call number 3. I see none. No one wants our jobs. Could I get a motion and a seconder that the nominating committee report be accepted? Name and... Thank you. You're proposing a seconder, please? Thank you. And all in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. That was easier than I thought it would be. Thank you, everyone, for... So as president of PROBUS Guelph and District, I'd like to thank the new management committee and for stepping forward to accept their roles for the upcoming year. As well, I would like to thank Anne Boudra, who was past president and chair of the nominating committee, and thank you, Linda Denny, as outgoing activity co-chair. Looking back, I can only think that asking me to be president last year was kind of like watching a dog walk on its hind legs. Even if it isn't done well, you're amazed it can be done at all. Thank you, everyone, for your support this past year. I look forward to the continued strength and fun times that our club presents. This leads me to the point of introducing, with pleasure, our new PROBUS Guelph and District President, Linda Davenport.
I have the pins. Okay, we have to do a pinning. So the last time I got pinned, I was in high school, and I was 17 years old. You give me this one.
Okay, here we go.
And okay, I think you can keep them on. And I just want to say while I'm doing this, because I know we're tight for time, that I thank you, Jim, on behalf of all of us, for your leadership, for your thoughtfulness, and living the values of the PROBUS Club, and for your jokes, some of which were funny.
Thank you. And
we're grateful.
You're most welcome. So, as Linda said, we have a little pinning ceremony to do here. Linda receives a president's pin, and as soon as I get this done, it means we're going steady.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not going through.
I should tell you last time it led to marriage. It's a sort of question.
Linda, that's not going through.
Okay,
I see why. Let me go a little lower. It was heavy material there. Just raise your chin. Our new president. And at this point in time, Linda assumes office and calls for any other business. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a very interesting speaker today, so I'm going to try to keep this part of my first meeting short. I would first like to welcome everybody here, new members, and we will get to some guests in a few minutes. I would like to thank Wilma's team, Uta Strevlin and Louise Watson, for greeting at the door. We appreciate the welcome. On a sad note, we have a couple of members who deserve our thoughts today, and we're just going to take a moment to address them. Louise Watson, her husband Doug Dieter, died on September 6th. Catherine Greenaway's husband and former president John Tice passed away September 27th. And Fred and Karen Dawkins' grandson, Jacob Alexander Wright, passed away earlier in September. To all of them, we just want to take a moment of silence and remembrance and condolences. Okay, thank you. And we remember. Okay, I want to talk a minute about the cake, because I did some reading and Jim gave me Tic Tacs, so it smelled nice. Okay, I didn't know a lot about why PROBUS had a month, so I don't know whether you do. I'll try to be brief. In 2020, the Government of Canada actually made October PROBUS month, and that was to coincide with the United Nations Day of Older Persons, which is most of us except for our young guest here, and maybe Jerry at the back. But the Day of Older Persons is October 1st, and Canada's National Senior Day is October 1st. So this was, when the government made this decision, it was to highlight the contribution of older people and the importance of social connectedness for retirees. So here's to all of us. Let them eat cake and celebrate our fellowship, our fun, and our friendship. And I have more details of which I might share, because I don't have as many jokes as Jim does in future meetings about the history of the club. Okay, now to our special guests. Ellen, I know you have some people. Dave Churchill is going to pass the magic mic. Ellen? Oh, Ellen's back on the other side there, Dave.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Joan, would you like to stand up? So I guess we'll say hello to the people at the front now before we turn around. But this is my guest, Joan Nolan. She's very interested in learning more about PROBUS, and she's here today to enjoy our meeting. And she did know it was an AGM, so she obviously is fine with the business portion. So Joan, do you want to turn around and look at the red lights there and just wave to the streamliners? Okay, thank you, Joan. Joan Nolan.
Anyone else? If there's anyone else, raise your hand and I can get the second mic.
Thank you. This is my friend Joan Bruder. I'd like to introduce Joan to the group. And I know she's very excited to learn more about this club and hopefully join us in the future. Thanks for joining us, Joan. I think you have to turn around and face the camera. There you go.
Okay, appears to be everyone.
There. Any other new faces? Okay, well, welcome to the Jones. It might be enough to have a new club. Another quick reminder that the Christmas buffet is on December 11th at the Guelph Country Club, and you can sign up today with Chris Bedard. I think we'll be able to do that afterwards too. I'm looking for someone. Yes, we will? Okay. At the tables at the back. And Marion, Lori, I'm going to call on you to introduce our guest speaker.
Good morning. Angie Sando brings a one-of-a-kind perspective shaped by grit, humor, and a zest for life. As a senior who's faced down life's biggest challenges, including being born with a limb difference and later surviving breast cancer, Angie has never been one to sit on the sidelines. From her 35-year corporate career to riding thousands of kilometers on a motorcycle with one hand, to playing guitar using a prosthetic, she lives life full throttle. Angie is the author of From Chemo to Throttle and executive producer of the award-winning documentary Angie, Tales of Determination. Her mission? To prove that joy, adventure, and laughter don't retire. They just get better with age. So I'd like to present to you now and welcome Angie to our podium. Thank you, Angie.
Hi. Good morning. How are you? You don't know what to expect, do you? I'm older than you think. So this day started with a discussion with my husband, and I won't tell you how long we've been together until we move forward. Does anybody know who Dwight Yoakam is? Because I've been to other meetings, and it's usually the ladies, right? We put up our hands and some gentlemen for Dwight Yoakam. So Dwight Yoakam, he's a country performer, and he was really big in the 80s and the 90s, and you know, big cowboy hat and tight jeans, and he has the moves. He still does, you know. He plays and you know, this kind of thing, you know. Right? Oh, like he does that. So I was talking to my husband because we just came back from seeing Dwight Yoakam. Actually, I just bought some more tickets for Dwight. He's not impressed. I don't care. And he said, you know, Ange, he doesn't look like that anymore. And I said, well, neither do you. And life continues, all right? So this is what we're in for. We're in for laughs. So let me tell you a bit about myself, just a bit more. So I worked in corporate for about 35 years. 35 years. It went by like that. Right? So I've worked for a number of companies that you might recognize. Pepsi is one of them. Do we have any Pepsi drinkers here? Why do Pepsi people do this? Why? Be proud. You drink Pepsi. Be proud. You know, see, I worked there, and I'm still a Pepsi girl, right? And now that I don't work there anymore, I'm allowed to hang out with the rest of you people that drink, you know, Coke or whatever it is that you drink. I'm allowed. I'm free. I can be friends with everybody now. So when I was at Pepsi, I managed a team that looked after everything from contract negotiation to collections to reconciliations and cash application and all that kind of fun stuff. And this was after working really hard to get my first job, which we'll get into a little later. So I'm glad that some of you know Pepsi. It's okay. You can admit it. It's okay. I also worked at a company by the name of Linde, which was BOC prior to being Linde. They're industrial gases. And it's in everything. It's in windows. You know, when you get your MRIs, there's gases in there, obviously manufacturing and such. And that was interesting. And I managed a team that did similar things there. Any former engineers here? Yeah. Why do you look so excited about having been an engineer? Right? Because you don't know where I'm going with this either, right? Well, aren't you engineers? I mean, it was great. So I worked at WSP. That's where I actually finished my corporate gig. That's one of the fourth largest engineering firms in Canada. And they get that way because they buy up all the little guys, right? But it was fun. It was over 8,000 employees. The head office is in Quebec. It was great. I managed a team of 70 people there. 70 people, about 60 of whom worked in Canada, 10 were in India. And, you know, I loved working with the engineers. Brilliant. And thank you so much for your contributions. Roads, bridges, highways, infrastructure. It's amazing. Getting engineers to do their billing, not so much. When you manage national billing team and you've got those deadlines of getting billing done, the only way we found a connection was if they rode motorcycles, because if they rode motorcycles and they knew I rode motorcycles, now it's brothers and sisters. And you have to respect people in the family, right? I mean, right? So that's where I ended my career, and after that I decided it's time to leave. And we'll get into that. In addition to that, yes, I am an author, and I have my book here today. It's called From Chemo to Throttle. It's my memoir, and I'll talk a bit about that today. My husband loaded up the bag, and he made me remember that he carried the books from the basement to the main level. He helped me load them into the car, and he said, bring back an empty bag because I don't want to have to bring them back downstairs. So help me make him happy today, okay? And I am the executive producer of Angie, Tales of Determination. It's actually a 32-minute documentary that I made for the Motorcycle Film Festival, which I never knew existed until I started to ride. And it's all about how I ride and what motivated me to ride. So that's a bit about me. So now it's, where did I come from? So my parents, I'm grateful to them forever, and just seeing the pictures, it brings out emotions in me, obviously. My father was born in 1919. My mother was born in 1923. So kids often said that they were my grandparents, right? Because totally different generation. Dad never knew the meaning of the word can't. He very determined, grit, determination, not very social, but if he were here, you'd know. Dad had a presence, special presence, very determined, little bit impatient, it's true, very opinionated, would never hesitate to share what was on his mind. Mom, very social, very social. You could always hear Mom laughing and joking and making friends with other people. Both of them lived through very difficult times, right? They grew up in the Depression. So what they instilled in me was, have fun, but save your money. Right? Have fun, save your money, but there's nothing that you can't do. So their world and my world kind of came together. So imagine I'm born, well, I can't tell you when I was born yet. You're going to have to guess this, and you'll figure it out as we go along. So my parents would be listening to things like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, and I heard stories of how my mom would watch Elvis on TV with covering her eyes on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I used to joke with Mom, how was I born if you would watch Elvis with covering your eyes, right? I do have a sister that's 15 years older than me. She watched Elvis with both eyes open. Do you remember these sitcoms like All in the Family and Flip Wilson and the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son and the Honeymooners? I mean, this is what I grew up with. This is what I was exposed to as a very little girl. And, you know, Hee Haw. Remember Hee Haw? Dwight was on Hee Haw, you know. You see, it's always going to come back to Dwight because this is my thing. This is what keeps me going these days. Sonny and Cher and the Dean Martin Show and all these different things that exposed you to laughter and humor and music, which both of my parents loved dearly. And there would be arguments in the house, believe it or not, when they weren't fighting about who wanted the last slice of the bagel. The arguments would be about who was, you know, better. Was it Frank Sinatra or was it Bing Crosby? And, you know, this type of communication I heard. You know, my sister had a box of records in the basement, and I would go through them and look at them as a little girl. Now, do you think that you can develop a connection with someone just by how they look? Do you think that's possible? Yeah? Yeah? Well, I did, and it's okay. You don't have to admit it out loud. You can think it in your head. Sometimes we don't want to admit these things, but when I was a little girl, I fell in love with Jimmy Page. And Jimmy Page was a guitarist for Led Zeppelin. And even as a little girl, as soon as I saw that long hair and that, you know, those curly locks and everything, I decided one day I had to play guitar. Right away, I had to play guitar because of Jimmy Page, even as a little girl. Other things I decided as a little girl was that I would never have kids because I wanted to be a kid myself for the rest of my life. And when I tell you my story, you'll see how it just doesn't end, especially having well, I do have a kid, I guess. It's my husband, right? Right, ladies? I mean, we know, right? I mean, we'll get into that a little bit, you know, but So my sister would listen to things like Led Zeppelin and the Doors and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So imagine my parents that are into, this different type of music, and they're hearing all this different type of rock and roll. And then, of course, my mom also, she loved the opera, and she loved classical music. So being surrounded by all this was just a blessing for me, because growing up sometimes was a little bit tough. I was a little bit different in more ways than one. I'll give you an example. This is an obvious difference, right? This is an obvious difference. But back then, girls weren't interested, or they may have been interested, but they did not play football or hockey or baseball. Girls didn't do stuff like that. Well, this girl did, and it had to be very authentic. So it couldn't be touch football or flag football. It had to be tackle football. And if it wasn't tackle football, I couldn't play. If I didn't come home with a bruise and my mom wasn't worried about, what was on my elbow, it wasn't a good day for me, right? So my parents tried to be interested in the things that I was interested in, but there was a little bit of a generation gap there. More often than not, Dad was seen as older because his hair turned white when he was very young. And when I would go out with my parents, Dad was often seen as being with his girlfriend, right? Because Dad was so much older than me. But that's okay. I loved being with my parents. And I was always encouraged to do whatever I set my mind to. So if you go back to when you were a child, and you imagine that one of your arms is bent and the other one is straight, how would you tie your shoes? Or hold a hairbrush while, maybe you're holding a hairdryer, things like that. So one of the things my mom told me when I was an infant, what I would do to get to point A to point B, because, I had the best of both worlds, so I was very impatient, was I would roll, right? I would roll, because crawling was a bit of a challenge. So the word can't never existed in my vocabulary. Does it exist in yours? You don't have to answer out loud, but I'll challenge you on that, because it shouldn't. It's never can't. I choose not to, right? But not can't. So there's Ange when she was born, and if you can see, my arm was bent. So what was my hand was sort of touching my muscle. So that's why I was saying I would roll. So I had surgery when I was a young girl because it was thought that it would give me more mobility, and it absolutely did. So I have a question for you. When we grew up, girls were traditionally taught to play with toys that taught us how to clean house, right? How to clean house and how to bake things. We had Barbie dolls, right? Or the boys had G.I. Joes. They were both dolls, but with boys it was called action figures, right? With us girls it was called dolls, right? Easy bake ovens versus race car sets. I had the race car set. The only reason I wanted an easy bake oven was because I thought if I would bake something, which I never wanted to learn, I could eat as much icing as I wanted, and Mom would never know. But she caught on to that, so she never got me the easy bake oven. And the Tonka trucks and all that, playing in the sand, remember the sand and the parks and everything? Well, I was a kid with the Tonka trucks and playing with all that. So at the same time here, I was labeled a tomboy, right? And I never liked labels. The only time I like labels is if they're on wine bottles. Then labels are okay, right? But from a very young age, I didn't like labels. Like, why couldn't I just be a girl that just was interested in these things? So dealing with all that, growing up with a limb difference and being judged just based on appearance was a bit of a challenge. And my biggest challenge was actually from adults, because once the kids, if you think back, kids as little kids, we were always pointing and looking, we're excited, everything is new, we're exploring, and then once we accept something, we get bored and we move on to the next thing, right? But the adults, that was a difficult thing, because they didn't know how to deal with questions. For example, when their child would say, "What's wrong with her? Why does she look like that?" Right? But for me, I never understood, because I never felt different. And that's been the way it's been going through life, with challenges all the time, right? Getting my first job was a challenge because people would judge me based on my appearance. So here's examples of what I've done. Going to the beach and playing never bothered me, but it bothered other people around me, again, because of how I looked. But I developed this attitude of, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to do whatever it is that I set my mind to, and nobody's going to determine what I can or can't do, right? And I deal with this my whole life, because we're all at a different stage of our lives now. and you're being judged no matter what, and it shouldn't bother you. Shouldn't bother you. So one of the things that I decided was, because I love music so much, and I mentioned Jimmy Page, was that I was going to play guitar. And I do play guitar. I use a prosthetic and I play. And is anybody familiar with AC/DC? You know Angus with the little schoolboy suit and all that? Well, Angus is 70 years old. He's 70 years old, you know, and I was Angus. Yeah, formed an AC/DC tribute band. And this is a story that kind of goes back to meeting my husband, who is a drummer. And he never liked AC/DC because he thought he was Neil Peart from Rush. You know, I have news for him. He's not. He likes to think that he is, but he isn't. But, you know, he would play, and I'd say, you know what, dear, one day when we move into a house, we're going to form an AC/DC tribute band, because if I'm Angus, I can demonstrate to people what you can do using a prosthetic. And we actually played. We were doing 50 shows a year, and we played in this area. And our name was Bear Rump. Yeah, because Angus, if you're not familiar, would pull moons, and he would show his backside. Ange has to be authentic, so what do you think I did? But you know, it got us gigs, it was great. But the people that I met is what is so important, what stays with me. Because people would say, if you can play guitar using a prosthetic, I can do this. And if you can play guitar using a prosthetic, I can do that. We wouldn't just play in bars, we would play charity events or fundraisers. And we did one for sick kids. And you know, you never know who you impact. And I always say it's so important to do whatever you can for other people. It doesn't matter if you inspire them or not. But I met this little guy when we did the sick kids benefit, and he was standing to the side of the stage, and he goes, look at her, she has one arm, she has one arm. And the father was, oh, no, you're going to offend her. It was the greatest thing that I ever heard, and we had a nice chat after, and he smiled. And it was at that time that I realized, I think I have a story to share. And one day, I'm going to leave corporate so that I can do that. One day, I'm going to ride a motorcycle, right? We have these one days. We might still have these one days, even today. Well, one day changed when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And usually when I talk about this, people go, oh, no, that's sad. No, it's not. We all have chapters in our lives. We all have things that happen to us. That's what life is. It's up, it's down. That's why you got to enjoy every minute of every day, right? Every minute of every day. But I'm going to tell you something. I learned a lot about myself when I went through breast cancer. And I had such awesome meds that I didn't have to pay for that made me feel like Keith Richards. So I would be walking, like, the world was tilted, and I didn't have to pay. And you have other people that have to pay big bucks for these types of drugs, that they all want to get on different types of drugs because they want to escape. I didn't pay for any of them, and I would sit there and just float away and made a lot of friends. Now, in this picture, it might be hard to see, I'm holding a lint roller. And I learned something. I learned that if you're going to go through a situation where you're going to lose your hair, or maybe you just want to cut your hair off and you have little stubble, it hurts sometimes. It wasn't that comfortable on the pillow. And I made a friend in Florida. She was diagnosed around the same time as I was. And she said, big deal, what are you complaining about? She said, get a lint roller and just roll it over your head and they'll come right out. So I tell my husband, I said, oh, Linda told me to get this lint roller. So we're sitting outside in the sun. Gentlemen, we love you. We really do. But you're a different species. We're sitting outside. He takes the thing and he's banging it on my head. And I said, Lloyd, what are you doing? You don't bang it. You roll it. You just roll it, right? And it was amazing what happened that, yes, it all came out. It was just wonderful. So I think that there's always positives that come out of things. And the positive that came out of that was stop waiting for the right day. But you see, I would still hear my parents saying, have fun, but save money. Have fun, save money. And it was instilled in me, right? But at that moment, I made a decision that at some point, I was going to leave corporate, which I did a few years ago, to get into speaking on a full-time basis, and also to get the motorcycle, which I did. Now, it's a little too chilly for me. I would have ridden today, but it's a little too chilly for me to come all this distance so early in the morning because I love that bike, and that bike gives me a sense of freedom. And on that motorcycle, when you're riding that bike, you're not seen as different. You're seen as the same. So I know there's a few of you that either have been on bikes before or maybe you're still riding, but if you don't know, with motorcyclists, we do this. So we put two fingers and we're saying rubber side down, so be safe. Now, when I'm riding, I do this. So nobody knows what I'm telling them, okay? So what type of motorcycle do you think I ride? Harley, right? They do a fantastic marketing job, right? Right? Everybody knows the name Harley Davidson. So Harley owners need dependable alternatives. That's Honda. Yeah, I ride a Honda. Harley Davidson wouldn't give me the time of day. Wouldn't give me the time of day. So when I decided that I wanted to ride a motorcycle, I went to motorcycle shows. I actually researched things about people that ride with one hand and or one arm. You'd be amazed at the things that people have accomplished out there. There's paraplegics that race, right? There's all kinds of modifications that are possible, and this is where I say limitations are okay. If you want to do something, it doesn't matter. Don't allow someone to tell you that you cannot do something. You can. There's always a way. And Honda was the one that gave me the freedom. And it's fantastic. Every time I can get out there and ride, it's just great. And now we're at a stage of our life where I hear I'm old. So, remember we were talking about labels? And how I don't like labels? Do you like labels? So now I hear, well, you're too old to do certain things. You're too old to dress that way. You shouldn't talk that way because you're too old, right? However, I have to recognize that there are some differences in my life than there used to be, and maybe you will relate to some of this. So we used to get excited about what we were going to do on the weekend, right? We used to go to school and we talk about what are you going to do on Friday, and are you going to Bobby's house, or does Mary has a party, and are you going to go? Oh, there's a new club that just opened up. Are you going to go? And now what we're talking about is, so you said you have an MRI appointment, so when's your colonoscopy? Like most of our appointments now are with doctors and specialists, right? I mean, my husband just told me the other day, because he's got colitis, he said, well, you know, I have to get a colonoscopy. I said, oh, really? When's your colonoscopy? He goes, October 23rd. So yeah, that's Dwight Yoakam's birthday. See, it all comes back to Dwight, right? So this is what we're doing now. And our late nights, remember we used to have late nights? I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day. She went away for a week, and she came back, and we're supposed to get together this weekend. She told me, well, you know, I have to sleep. I'm tired. I said, you're tired? She said, yeah, I was away for a week. I said, well, what happened to, don't you remember we only needed like 2 hours sleep if we even got that, right? We would be up all day and all night and all this stuff. Now we have to fight about if we can stay awake watching Netflix. My husband is a Leaf fan. Anybody here a Leaf fan? Oh, I'm sorry. So at every speaking engagement that I do, I always say this because I want you to remember me, right? You're never going to win it with Austin. I'm sorry. I know he got a goal last night. It was an empty netter, but you know, you're just not gonna. You're not gonna do it with him. So remember that. Let me go a step further. Blue Jays. Any Blue Jay fans? Yeah. Okay. So you see, I'm that one. I'm a Yankees fan, right? I'm a Yankees fan. Gee, this is a hostile crowd. This is what you get for being honest and being yourself and being true to you, right? Don't worry. You won't win it all. I'm telling you. I think it's going to be LA. But, you know, good on you. You know, good on you. And keep striving, because that's what it's all about. They're Toronto teams. You know what's going to happen. But good luck. Good luck. I wish you, you know, all the best. So here's my hubby. He argued with me last night because I said, you know, I want to watch the baseball game. It's playoffs. I want to watch my Yankees. I mean, I knew they were going to lose, okay? He said he wants to watch, you know, his Leafs. Fine. Watch them. What does he do? He falls asleep on the couch. He's falling asleep. He's, you know, and I'm doing, you know, Lloyd, if you're not going to stay awake, I'm going to switch the channel. I'm up, right? Now, how often does this happen, that you're watching something, and, you know, now we'll go back to Netflix, right? So we have a series that we're watching. I don't think he enjoys it that much, but I do, and that's all that matters, and it's called Parenthood. And I really like it. So, you know, we're watching it, and again, I hear, like, you know, the odd, you know, and I wake up, right? And then we're watching the show, and they talk about a character by the name of Corey. And I'm looking at him going, who's Corey? Because I don't know, who's Corey? We don't remember who Corey is. So now we have to rewind, but we don't know how far back to rewind because I fell asleep too, right? And now we don't even remember what's going on. And as you're watching the show and they're having a conversation, you don't even remember what they're talking about, right? Right? Does this happen to you? Right? These things happen. That happens. This is part of our life, right? But did you know that a benefit of being older is that we know what it's like to go into a grocery store and listen to the music that we used to listen to when we were younger. Now we don't have to pay anything to get into any bar, right? I walk through there, if I hear certain things, I'm just dancing away. I don't care who sees me, right? And they sell alcohol, right? So you got it all now in your local Metro store. It's fantastic. So yeah, so we talk about different things. So my husband has sleep apnea. He won't admit it, but he has sleep apnea, and he has a CPAP machine. Does anybody have experience with those things? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So I just want to know, is it just him? Because, you know, I decided he was going to get the CPAP machine, and it's got the hose on the top, right? And he's got a little thing for his nose. And every night, he's had this thing since February, every night, once he gets it working, he starts pretending that he's Darth Vader because everything's a game, right? So I hear psh, psh, it's the air is escaping from his mouth, and he thinks it's hilarious. Do you do that too? I mean, seriously, it's not funny. And you know, it's just like you're still a kid, and the more you say stop, the more they'll do it, right? You know, so I start ignoring it, and then he tells me, you know, he doesn't really need it. He found something that's going to make it even better. He went to Amazon, and he bought a mouth guard. Right? Because he says, I don't need to, it's just a snoring. So I said, you know what, you get the mouth guard. That's just great. Because what's going to happen with the mouth guard is you'll put it in your mouth, but you need the air. Do you understand? You need the air. So you can put the mouth guard in. You won't need that either because you won't be breathing and you won't wake up and you don't need any of it. You know, it's not going to work for you. Well, I want to try it. You can try it, but you know, hey, if you're not there in the morning, like, you know, use the CPAP machine. And then there's times you walk into the washroom, well, for me anyway, there's a hose that's hanging over, you know, the shower curtain rod that scares the daylights out of me because he has to clean these things, right? So you find these things that never used to be there before, such as living at a different age, you know. I bumped into a friend at a local grocery store the other day, and I don't know, has this happened to you with these types of conversations where it's, hey, how are you? Great, haven't seen you in a long time. How you doing? Yeah, I'm doing okay. You know, my finger's getting kind of, it sticks. Yeah, my finger too. Really, what'd you do about it? Oh, I went to see Dr. So-and-so. Oh, really, you did? This is what we're doing. So instead of exchanging phone numbers of, yeah, did you see that cute guy or that cute girl? Could you give me her number? Now we're exchanging phone numbers for specialists, right? This is where we are now. Now, have you ever been made to feel like you're a fool because of an appliance? Want to think about that one for a sec? We got a new toaster oven, right? This is a few years ago, a new toaster oven. The old toaster oven had 2 dials on it, right? It was great. We got the new one, it had 3. So we got into an argument about what the 3rd dial was for and how to use the toaster oven. And it was at that moment that I said to him, you know, we're becoming my parents. I said, this is what's happening. We're becoming my parents. We're at the point where the glasses, where are my glasses? He's got these glasses that he wears. They're cheaters. There's 5 pair. They're all over the house, right? They're all over the place, right? So, I mean, this is what happens. Instapot. Does anybody have an Instapot? No? Yes? Yeah? Do you know how to use it? Yeah? Good for you, because we got the Instapot, and it came with a manual like this, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we said, yeah, you know what, that's just going in the cupboard. So we have a brand new Instapot if anybody wants one, because it's not happening. It's just not happening. And our life is like, it's like a game show now. I don't know, do you think, you know, when you're having these conversations, and it's, yeah, you remember when we went to, you know, that place? You know, the place with the thing? What thing? Right? No, you know, that big thing. No, that, you know, and we were there and it was cold. No, that thing wasn't there. The thingamajig you're talking about was over there, right? And you know, we went with what's her name and what's his name, and you remember, you know, those conversations? It's like a game show, right? So we have these conversations, and he can't hear, and he refuses to get hearing aids because, you know, he's a drummer, right? So he, you know, he's not going to get hearing aids. He can't hear. I don't remember, right? And then, of course, we fall asleep every now and then. So these conversations can go on forever, and we can be talking about the same thing. And it doesn't matter because we don't remember, right? So this is life now, right? And that's okay. That's okay. He got the CPAP machine, so we've been together for 42 years. So now you can start doing some math now, right? We've been together for 42 years, and we got married last year. So you can see, because, we had to make it official after, all those years, right? Because he got the CPAP machine. So I said, fine, I guess, I've trained you enough for all these years, and now we're going to be an official couple, right? So you can see the differences right there. I mean, the Leaf fan and the New York Ranger fan, although I'm pretty upset with them right now, but, they can't even win their home opener, so I'm cheering for the Winnipeg Jets. Go Jets, right? It's a Canadian team. You can back me on that one, right? Even though it's not the Leafs. So yes, so we did. We got married, and we decided that we were going to have all our friends wearing different sports attire and everything, and it's been wonderful. And like I said, we communicate perfectly, right? Like I said, he forgets and nods off, and I'm not interested, and it's this kind of stuff, right? And I mean, I don't know, do you have these issues too where, and gentlemen, I am not picking on you. This is all facts, right? But I always said to him, if you say you're going to do something, can you really do it? Can you really do it? But when the sun's out, he's like the road runner running to the bike, and we got to go on the bike, and we got little bushes in the front, and all I ask is, can you just trim the bushes? It's been all year that the bushes haven't been trimmed, but we've ridden about 20,000 kilometers this year. So we have our priorities, right? So we do things a little differently. And sometimes we said that we were going to do things or never do things, and we find ourselves doing them. I said to my mother when I was a little girl, I would never forget, I would never have an acre pain, and I would never dye my hair. Yeah, I know she's laughing, right? I know she's laughing because it happens, right? I told you I forget. This is the color of today. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red, it depends. So there's things that we do that people will say we shouldn't be doing. Have you ever faced that? Yeah? And what do you do about it? Do you do it anyway? That's what you do. You do it anyway. Right? The things that we see in this crazy world that we have to live with, right? And our history and our experience and everything, do it. If you feel good about doing something, do it. My nephew is 15 years younger than me. And he said to me, because I try to have different social media platforms, and he said, Ange, you shouldn't be using TikTok. He said, that's for young people. Remember, 15 years younger than me. I've been married for 42 years. And I said, well, oxygen is for young people too, but I'm not giving that up either, right? My husband always said he wouldn't be that guy to have no hair on the top of his head, but still have it long. He's that guy. But that's okay. As long as he's happy, if he wants to wear a cap all day, that's fine. As long as, he washes it every now and then. But this is what I'm saying, we watch sports more than we play them. Right? We're in a band, so I play guitar and I sing, and like I said, he's a drummer, and we have two other folks. We do classic rock and country. We don't do the 50 gigs anymore. And yeah, now we're starting to play at Legions instead of starting at 10 o'clock and ending at 3. Life changes. But that's okay. It's not about the ride. It's about laughing when the ride gets bumpy. Don't look back with regret because there's nothing you can do about it. Just like the diagnosis that I had. I couldn't do anything about the diagnosis. What could I do? I had to accept it and move on. Do I have dark days? Of course I have dark days. It happens to all of us, right? I mean, 2 months ago I woke up and this ringing is in my ear. I still have the ringing in my ear. And I said, well, this isn't fair. He's the drummer. He should have ringing in his ear. I have ringing in my ear. So now I have to have the app with the rain sounds and the fan. And then he's complaining. And I said, well, I have to listen to your CPAP machine. Right? So this is what it is. It's accepting that things are changing. Things are different. That's okay. That's okay. That's why you're members of a group like PROBUS, where you've got the social aspect in your life. And you've got the laughter and the humor. And you look toward the future of what you can do tomorrow. Does that make sense? So we are seasoned and smiling. And you know what? Being seasoned is good. I mean, when you eat a good steak or chicken or whatever, fish, we got good seasoning on that, right? So it's okay. So here's what I've learned. People are always going to judge you. It doesn't matter what you do or what you say, you're going to be judged. And I'll give you an example. When I worked at one of the corporate gigs, I would walk by a certain woman to go to the washroom, and she would say, "What are you laughing at? What are you smiling at?" So I started walking around, and I tried to have no expression on my face. And then she said to me, "What are you so angry for all the time?" Right? So there's some people that are never going to be happy. They're always going to view you in a certain light. So what I did was I just started walking the other way, right? You know, you try and get along with everybody, but if you can't, you can't. And being my father's daughter, yes, I'm very opinionated. I have lots to say on certain topics. I know in today's world, try and keep it quiet, but I can't. That's who I am. So it's important for me to share with you that we're all different at the end of the day, but we're all the same. Are you familiar with Keith Richards? You know, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, he's going to live longer than all of us, right? He's got a ring on his finger. It's a skull. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, if you've seen pictures of him. And he wears that ring, he said, because if you pull back the layers, we're all the same. We're all the same. And it's to remind him that we're all the same, right? And we are. We're all human beings with different opinions, and we're all different. Different statures, different color hair, different opinions, different thoughts. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. So even at our age now, it's hard not to judge. It's hard not to bring your experiences from the past to the future, whether they're good or bad. If they're good, that's awesome. We all carry a certain amount of baggage, right? But it's important to be true to you and to recognize the wonderful things that you can do. Because we're different. I play guitar with a prosthetic. I ride a motorcycle with one hand. But if I worried about that, I'd be in bubble wrap, right? So I go out there, and I'll tell you, you can still have first at any age. Do you think that's true? Yeah? I did. So I went to my first Dwight Yoakam concert 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to tell you, I had my hat and my boots. And it was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I had to make sure on my motorcycle, he rides too, that I had enough space to take my hat and my boots, right? Because you can't go to Dwight without wearing a hat and boots. And I made sure we had front row. He was just thrilled, right? And when he came out, I was doing this. I was jumping and yelling and screaming like a 16-year-old, and I'm proud of it. I had a great time. So what I did was, as soon as I got home, I looked at another concert and I bought front row again. I said, well, he's still working. I'm retired. I said, so you got to support my Dwight habit, because now that Rush just announced that they're coming back, he's told me, well, they're coming to Toronto for 4 nights. I have to get tickets. Fine, I'll buy some more Dwight tickets. We're going to have a great time. So yes, you can still have first, and you can still be excited about things, and that's great. So I'm not old, and you're not old. Old? I know what people say. Yeah, you know, my husband, he says, it's just a number. And I laugh sometimes because I said, it's just a number, but you've had shingles, and we have aches, I have osteo, and all these wonderful things. Things do change as we get older, but at the end of the day, it's an attitude. You can be old when you're 20. Have you ever seen that? There's young kids that they're old, right? We're not old, we're seasoned. And season makes everything better. So I say to you, ride your ride. Be yourself. And always make sure it comes with laughter, because that's what keeps us seasoned and smiling. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm very transparent if you want to ask me anything.
If you have questions, I have the microphones. So just put up your hands. There's one.
Great talk. I'm just curious, what adaptations did they do to your bike so you could ride it? I just driving with 2 hands is a challenge for some of us. What did they do for your bike to enable you to ride it even at high speed, highway, etc.?
Well, thanks for that question. So what they did to my motorcycle. So my first motorcycle was a Honda Rebel, and it was a 300cc because I wanted to start small. And I only started, I think it was like 2017 I started to ride. So for those of you that don't ride, the clutch, you have a clutch and you have a front brake on your handlebars, right? And you've got your rear brake is on the right and your shifter is on the left. right? So what they did with my first bike was, and the throttle, sorry, is on the right. So they took my front brake from the right, they moved it to the left. I didn't need a clutch lever because what we did was we installed what's called, you see? The clutch, it's kind of like a recluse clutch. So it disengages the engine based on RPMs, right? So it would disengage the engine and I would still shift. And for my throttle on my very first bike, it was, we kind of MacGyvered something, and it was like a finger throttle. So I would push with my index finger, and that's how I rode. And when I outgrew that bike, I switched to a Shadow, which is also a Honda, and we did the same thing. We installed the same type of clutch, so it disengaged the engine automatically. I would still shift. We changed the finger throttle more to a thumb type throttle. It didn't like it. The torque on that bike, I would have to maintain that clutch that was installed. It cost about $1,000, $2,000 a year, and I just couldn't afford to do it anymore. So I had no choice. I had to find another bike, and that is my current bike, and that bike is named Josh, after Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. There must be some Bills fans. We got to agree on something, right? Yeah, go Bills, come on. So that's Josh, and that's a Honda CTX. It's dual clutch, so it can be ridden in automatic, and that is stock with Honda. So the Gold Wings, there's some Gold Wings that have dual clutch. There's Africas, NCs, meaning that the bike could be ridden as an automatic, or if you want to ride it manual, you have paddle shifters, which are kind of like an ATV. And what Honda did for me on that bike was they actually moved my throttle to the left-hand side, so it's a regular throttle, just like on any other motorcycle, except it's on the left-hand side. And my front brake is still on the left. So everything else with that bike is stock, which is a good thing because we just went to Tennessee, and I was hearing banging, and it turned out my chain was loose, and I got a dealer out there to fix it for me, which was great. So that's the mods. Now, you might ask, too, because I get this question, do I use a prosthetic? Why don't I use a prosthetic? I was born this way, so this is all I know. So this arm gets very, very strong, during riding season. And I had a bit of bursitis, right? You can relate. I had a bit of bursitis this year, and it prevented me from riding for about 4 weeks. I wasn't a happy girl. But now that the season's coming to an end, everything's good. So I look forward to next year. So I hope that answers your question. Probably more than what you anticipated, right?
Any other questions?
You never did tell us how old you are. Guess? 67, somebody said?
You're doing that because of calculations, right? 62. But that's okay. After what I went on in the house this morning, I might look 60. That's all right.
Well, on behalf of all of us here today, Angie, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. You have inspired us. I noticed on your email signature, it says Angie Sando, inspirational humorist, comedian, author, award-winning executive producer, all true, as we've learned today. But what really strikes me is born different, built strong. And we thank you for sharing your strength with us today.
Just a reminder that Angie has some books there. Anybody that wants to hear more of her life tales, it sounds like that we only got the abbreviated version. Jim has shared his last joke to end our meeting today, and it's very appropriate. So on behalf of Jim, I'm reading it. We could all learn a lot from crayons. Some are sharp, some are pretty, and some are dull. Some have weird names, and all are different colors, but they all live together in the same box. It was pretty good, Jim. Is there any other business for the day? Seeing none, I call this meeting to adjournment. Thank you. Stay safe, and we'll see you in November.